Welcome to the Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast, brought to you by Kush Audio, a premium manufacturer of top quality audio hardware and plugins. The high end just got higher. Visit thehouseofkush.com for more information. And now your hosts, Joey Sturgis, Joel Wanasek, and EYAL Levy.
Welcome to the Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast. I am EYAL Levy. Joey Sturgis and Joel Wanasek are out. Joel's studio doesn't exist. He's moving and in the middle of boxes and gear piled to the ceilings and painting walls, and who the hell knows what's going on with that. And Joey's busy because over at JST, we're releasing a plugin tonight. By the time this comes out, the plugin will have already been released. So if you haven't heard of it, it's called Tominator, and it's designed to reduce the bleed from mics on natural drums. Super effective, and will cut down your manual gating time by a lot. It's great. I've messed with it quite a bit. So it's just me, and with me is special guest Mr. Logan Mader. How are you doing, dude?
Good, man. Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I'm sure most of you know who Logan is, but if you don't, you should, and you will after this. You may know him from a while ago. He was in Machine Head. He's been in Soulfly. He's now in a band called Once Human. He's scored soundtracks, worked with bands in the studio like Gojira, Devil Driver, Five Finger Death Punch, Fear Factory, Soulfly, Devil You Know. You've got a pretty long list of awesome stuff, man, that you've worked on.
Yeah, sounds pretty good when you put it like that. I guess I keep busy.
Did I miss anything cool?
I mean, you kind of hit the
milestones.
Yeah, you covered it pretty well there. Yeah.
So you're kind of like me. You are a guitar player who moved into production, or did you start in production first and then move to guitar?
No, I started in guitar and just a Bay Area thrash metal kid, teenager, growing up in Oakland. My passion was metal, and I wanted to be a guitar player, so I got a guitar and taught myself how to play it. And I sat in my bedroom and played guitar all day, every day for several years, and then I joined a band called Machine Head. And that was my first band.
Was the band already known when you joined, or did you join when it was still a local band?
No, I was a co-founding member. So Rob Flynn started the band, and he brought Adam Deuce in as bass player. And Adam started playing some riffs that I had written, and Rob was like, "What's that? That's cool." He's like, "Yeah, these are Logan's riffs. You should bring Logan in the band." So there I was. And then we got a drummer by the name of Tony Costanza. He was the original drummer for a short period of time, and then he left, and we got Chris Contos, and that was the completed lineup for the first album.
And just out of curiosity, how long was it between the time that you joined and when the band, I guess, got signed and became a thing?
Okay, so it was June of 1992, the band formed officially, and we signed a deal in October 93 with Roadrunner. Monty Connor signed us to Roadrunner, and he got the demo from Borovoy Kurgan, who is the founder of Blabbermouth. He used to be a writer for, I think, Metal Maniacs back in the day. And he got a hold of this cassette demo that we did and sent it to Monty, and Monty loved it. And he actually offered a deal before even seeing the band live. And then, I moved pretty quickly from there. We did a record with Colin Richardson, and that was an amazing experience to be in like a really nice studio and work with the great producer and like to have that experience. And it was all on 2-inch tape, you know.
Was that your first time in the studio, or like first time in like a real studio?
Yeah, totally. My first time in a studio was doing the demo like on a 16-track, home studio somewhere in Oakland when we did the first Machine Head demo. And then the next was Fantasy Recording in Berkeley, which is a really nice room there. And it was full-blown, like full production, 2-inch tape recording. And we were in the room with the drummer getting the drum tracks with scratch guitars going, and really organic, no editing, and all old school, organic. You got to play every note kind of thing.
Not how it's done now.
Well,
Some bands.
Yeah.
It seems like some bands are starting to move in that direction. Some productions are starting to go back towards that.
Yeah.
Thankfully. So I've worked with Colin as well. He mixed my band when we got signed to Roadrunner like 10 years ago, and that was not my first time in a studio or anything. I had already been producing, but it was my first time experience with like a heavy hitter.
Was it with a Doth? The band was.
Yeah, it was with Doth, signed by Monty too.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, he's like my music industry dad. Love that guy.
Yeah.
But Colin. The thing that blew my mind about Colin was just he had this reputation for taking a long time, and so I was fully expecting to go to London and spend forever with him, and I did. It was like 3.5 weeks on the mix, but. The thing is, he wasn't fucking around taking a long time. He just would not move forward until he thought it was exactly right. And it's just his standards were so damn high. It was mind-blowing. Was it kind of like that for you when you worked with him?
Well, I didn't really have anything to compare it to because it was my first experience. I know that we tracked at Fantasy and mixed in the same studio, Burn My Eyes, and then when we took the mixes home, we didn't like what we were hearing. It's like some things were not translating accurately, and we were like, fuck, we got to remix this thing. So we went to Scream Studios in LA. I think that place is still there, but they have, like a nice SSL, and this is like an SSL mix and, on tape. And we did the mix there. It was 2 weeks. Yeah, it was 2 weeks, which is kind of a long time to mix a record, but when it's analog and, you really do have to make sure it's right before you move on, because the recall, if you want to go back and change something, it's like 4 hours just to recall the console and the outboard gear. And so, yeah, 2 weeks, and we nailed it, and it sounds like that mix, I love it. Even today, it's still like... holds up.
It still holds up.
Yeah. He's very meticulous and very analog.
Yeah, he mixed the Doth on a Neve console. And it was kind of mind-blowing for me because I had always been working in the box before that. And so when we got there and he did the first song, it took like 5 days or something. And it was one of those things where it was kind of like, okay, this is kind of it. Like once it's done, it's done. And that messed with me because I'm so used to just being able to open a file.
Yeah.
But that was it. And then the board crashed 2 days later and lost all the recalls anyways. So there was no going there's no going back. But you know what? We talk about this a lot on this podcast. I think that there's something to be said for having to commit.
Yeah.
Like the level of decisions and choices that you make when you know that you can't do it over. Sometimes you make better decisions that way.
Yeah, I'm not scared of that too. I kind of I go that route. I mean, in general, even with Pro Tools, I know you can always backtrack and retrace your steps and completely redo something, but when I feel like it's good, I'll print it and move on.
I think that's a really great way to work. That's actually how I do it, how Joey does it as well.
Yeah.
It's just the thing we say is that if you print something you don't like, it'll teach you to not print something you don't like in the future.
Yeah.
So I guess when you're working nowadays, do you ever work with younger bands who have no concept at all of how things used to be done?
Oh, yeah. I mean, most of the bands have never done it, any other way. But I still work, there's a band called Wasp that's, been around for 30 years. Do you know the band Wasp? Yeah, I mixed their last 3 albums. I'm going to be mixing their next couple of records as well. And they still record on tape, and they dump into Pro Tools after, and Blackie, he likes the analog harmonic distortion, and that's how he does things. And so it's cool to work with, that vibe still. I also started producing and engineering in a time period where it was still transitional from digital becoming a standard and still analog existing in most studios. And I did a lot of tape recording as an engineer and learned the whole analog world from that point of view on a console with tape. So,
Do you miss it?
no. Well, I mean, no. I mean, the convenience and the efficiency from digital is, it outweighs, to me, it outweighs all of that. It's nice when I track drums, I go into a big room and I light it all up with all the good mic pre's and, you got to have the nice big size room and good pre's.
You got to do that.
Yeah.
You kind of got to do that. There's kind of no, in my experience, there's no getting around that part of it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if you got to go all the way there or just do MIDI.
That's actually a really, really good point. And I tell this to people all the time, which is if you're not going to go all the way with drums, kind of don't bother.
Yeah.
Because it's not worth it. It's not worth the hassle.
Yeah.
It's just not. I know that your ego and your pride might be telling you to record the drums because at least it's a performance, but I don't know. I think that if you're not gonna, there's so many moving pieces, there's so many things to deal with. If you're not gonna do it right, just program.
Yeah. But it's not that hard to do it right. These days I'll take 3 days to do a full album, or 2 days and get the whole thing done. And I always hire a tech, like like Angel City Drumworks guy. I've used Drum Doctor before, but like I usually go to John at Angel City and he'll come with a truck full of snares and any other drums that I might want to audition, and most importantly, like a big selection of good sounding cymbals that I can try all of them until they're all right. Because being an acoustic animal, it's like it's got to sound right in the room. You can't it's not like plugging a guitar in and tweaking the amp. It's like it is what it is. It's got to sound good in the room, and the tuning sweet spot for every drum is different. And I don't know how to tune drums, and most drummers don't know how to tune drums. So it's worth it to spend the extra budget on having a guy there and make sure that is done right and maintained throughout the session.
I also work with a drum tech when I track, and I have for like the past 4 years or 5 years. And the way that I phrase it to bands is, yes, I could tune your drums okay, like decently, but wouldn't you rather have someone who's an expert at it doing it, like an expert, and then you can use me for my expertise, which would be my ears and where to put the mics and things like that. Rather than waste my ears on hitting drums and that, get someone that's their life. That's what they do.
Yeah, and it saves time too, because
absolutely.
Yeah, you need to listen through the mics and have them in there and tell them up or down or this and that. Hearing it on the back end,
Have you always used a drum tech?
Well, in the very beginning when I first started, no. I mean, I'm talking like around the early 2000s. I did sessions. I was working as an engineer in a B-level studio in Hollywood, still kind of apprenticing, but doing sessions and hustling up jobs on my own. And there often wouldn't be a budget for a drum tech, so it was like, make the best of it. But I knew if there's a budget, you got to have someone in there that can handle that. And then, I won't do it. And quickly thereafter, I would never do sessions without having it, handled by a good tech.
Well, the difference is just night and day.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people don't understand what a difference greatly recorded source tracks make.
Makes all the difference.
Yeah, it seriously does. I mean, it's like when you get a session that's well recorded, just putting faders up is already 50% of the way there, if not more.
Yeah. Yeah, you can tell right away if it's going to be easy or extremely difficult to make it sound good when you get a mix like that.
Yeah. So what made you want to start recording? speaking of the early 2000s and you hustling up side work and all that, like how did that even come about in the first place?
Well, it started with being in Machine Head and getting to have that studio experience. I loved it. Like, to me, that was like, part of the dream, and I just loved the vibe of being in the studio. I was really curious about technical aspects of the recording process and what does this do, what does that do, why did we do that, and really absorbed a lot of what was happening while I was, being a guitar player in a band. And, I almost felt like that part of being in a band was half of it. There's the rock star playing in front of 100,000 people touring and going all over the world is half of it, and then the creative and production part of it for me was the other half of it. So I was always really into it from the beginning. And then, like, when I was in Soulfly, I got a Roland hard disk recorder, like one of those old VS 1680s. And I started, like, just fucking around making demos with drum machine and riffs and just, recording stuff that I would write and, getting into it and realizing I want to do this more. And so I just decided one day that's what I'm going to do. And so I got I got a job
just like that.
Well, I mean,
just this is it.
I made that decision. Like, I really wanted to do that, and whatever it would take to get me there. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. It was like, even though I was the guy from a pretty famous band, and it's a totally different world to go into behind the scenes and producing. You can't just like show up and say, I want to do this, and here I am, and pay me. So I was humbled, and I took a job for $10 an hour as an engineer. I was actually engineering. I wasn't just an assistant getting coffee, but I was learning and working on any little shitty demo I could get my hands on, and working on whatever project would come into the studio, just as the in-house engineer, and learning along the way. And the reason I got that job is because I hustled up a mix job. This is it's kind of funny. It's like someone was like, I don't know how it came, but I was like, yeah, I'll mix your record. And I had never mixed a record before.
Ballsy.
I was like, jump in the fire and do it. So I go into this studio, and I hired this studio, and I was really counting on the owner of the studio to kind of like, help me out. And so I get going, and it was cool. We got the tracks up and started going, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, fuck it. He would do this often. He double booked, and he's like, I gotta bump you guys. And I'm like, I can't bump these guys. They like flew in to LA to work on this. And he's like, okay. He set me up like a digital performer rig in another room of his studio. And I took the sessions and just like started prepping, doing samples and general gain structures. And I had no idea how to use digital performer. He just taught me along the way, and I would ask him questions, and I pretty much figured it out. By the time I was done with the mix, he was like, damn, you really, picked it up quick. So he gave me a job as an engineer there. And, I picked up on the ins and outs of the room and the general protocol of tracking the way he does there really quickly. So I got that job.
So wait. That mix didn't totally suck?
Well, I mean, it got...
How did it turn out?
It got approved. I mean, it got approved by the artist. Does that mean it didn't suck? I mean, know. Does it suck? I don't want to hear it.
Well, like first mixes are always scary.
Yeah, I can't tell you that it sucked, but I wouldn't tell you that it was good. But we got the job done, and then I learned Pro Tools. I started working in a little bit freelance in some other rooms, and I got on a Pro Tools rig, and I started learning Pro Tools, and I actually taught the owner of the studio that I was working at. I was like, dude, you need to move to Pro Tools. The digital performer sucks. And so he got a rig. And I taught him Pro Tools, and like a few months later.
Dude, digital performer, that's what I used before Pro Tools too.
Yeah.
No good. I mean, you could record with it, but
yeah.
When I got on Pro Tools, I was like, yeah, this is what it feels like to be a man. Like, digital performer was just not okay.
Yeah, and in the fundamentals, too, you can tell, like, it's more of an extension, or it's more of an analog simulation, just the way that it's laid out with the mixer and the way the signal flows and the way you go to, get to certain things. It's like, it feels more like a virtual studio than a performer, or even some of the others, even though like Cubase and Logic are really good. And I know like a lot of composers use Cubase for scoring because it does have a lot of features that are more score friendly. But for like audio, it's Pro Tools is the one.
So speaking of scoring, how did that come about? And did you use Pro Tools when you scored like Ninja 2?
Yeah, I did. I used Pro Tools. It's kind of the same thing as the first mix I did. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing, but I somehow pulled it off. Well, here's how I pulled it off. I collaborated with a guy named Gerard Marino, who is a serious badass composer. He's done a bunch of movies. He did the game God of War 1, 2, and 3, and Spider-Man 1 and 2. He's a friend of mine. And,
nice.
And he's really, really good composer, and schooled Berkeley, and like he can conduct an orchestra. And so I brought him in.
The real deal.
I got the gig, yeah, and I brought him in to collaborate. So that was my safety net and my wingman, and we split the cues up. Basically, I did half the cues and he did half the cues, and I had some guidance from him along the way. But I pulled it off. It's like at the end of the day, it's a totally different world from making records. It's like it's a totally different world, and I learned quickly what was needed to be achieved with the music in a scene, for example. And it's an action movie, so you could get pretty dense and energetic with it, but just the fundamentals of translating emotion with sound and with music, and in the vibe and the pace of the scene. It's like, it's a really fine art, and I'm not like, I can't call myself like a film composer, but I did pull it off. I did another movie as well. And I enjoyed the process, and I liked working with Gerard. He's badass. He can take, and he uses Cubase, and his instruments library is incredible. He can do any orchestral arrangement, and you can't tell that it's fake. And it's pretty amazing how he can do that.
Yeah, on that level.
Yeah, so a lot of my stuff, like I would need help, well, I was also using this guitar VO. I was playing like a bowed instrument that's like a guitar, but it's a viola guitar thing, and using that to get the organics, and then doing this instrument called a guitar VO. Do you know what that is?
Guitar VO. I have not heard of that.
Yeah, check it out. It's really cool. You know who kills it is Tyler Bates. He's the composer from 300 and X-Men.
I'm actually gonna look this up right now. So guitar.
And look Tyler Bates guitar VO 300.
Okay.
Or was it? It's an X-Men scene, and he'll play the shit out of that thing. But it's got frets like a guitar.
Oh, guitar viol. Okay,
viol,
I thought you were saying VO.
Whatever.
Like viol, like viola. Oh, that is an interesting looking instrument.
Yeah. So it's got a pickup.
So do you play with a bow?
Yeah, you play with a bow. You can pick it too. So it's got the arch on the bridge, so you can bow it, but you can also pick it. But for a guitar player, it's really easier because it's tuned and it's got frets, like 6 strings, like a guitar.
Yeah. And so it was pretty natural for you to adjust to it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't like shredding on it, but I was doing lines and parts that were executed well, and Yeah, but Tyler...
That's kind of fascinating. So what were you saying about Tyler?
Well, he's really good at playing that thing. Like, if you have time, check out this performance he does where he'll do, like, looping pedals, and he'll do, like, a whole arrangement using, like, looping parts, and then layering, and it's a full arrangement all by one guy, like one-man band kind of thing.
Wow. All right. I'm definitely checking that out. I'm curious. When you were saying that the translation of emotion into sound was different when it comes to film scoring as opposed to working with, bands or something.
Yeah.
Metal.
Because I'm a metal...
Could you elaborate on that a little?
Okay. I mean... Yeah, it's like I'm a metal guy. It's like the general vibe is usually aggressive, dramatic, powerful, dark, all those things. It's kind of the standard emotional source for metal. So when working on a scene where I'm supposed to use authentic Japanese instrumentation and do music that's not common for me to do, kind of thing, and like I don't know, it's just like
how did you get inside of that
in the job? How did I, or inside?
Yeah, like how the reason I'm asking is because I'm sure you're familiar like with when a metal band tries to do an orchestral track that the drummer wrote, often it sucks balls, and it's like usually when you leave a metal band to their own devices and they write symphonic stuff or soundtracky stuff, it's like horrible. Like they don't know what the fuck they're doing. It's just bad shit. And lots of times also you hear metal dudes try to leave the genre and it just doesn't sound cool. So because they can't get away from being metal dudes. So I'm wondering how you got your head into that space for doing something that doesn't fit the dark, aggressive.
Yeah, it was unfamiliar to me, but at the same time, it's like I'm all feel. I just feel and hear. I don't know music theory. I never studied it, or I don't know why a scale is what it is, but I feel it and I hear it, and that's what I did with the scenes. I mean, the action parts came more naturally. I have done a lot of music for trailers before I had done the film. And that was just me fucking around with like a hybridized orchestral mixed with electronica and, like symphonic percussion and just doing high energy action type music for trailers. So I had a bit of experience in that world going into it. But again, it was just like I tried to just let go and feel what the director wanted me to feel, and then try to picture that in colors and in sound and try to express it, and then delete it and do it again and delete it and do it again and again until I got it.
So how long do you think that it took you until you, I guess, hit a flow with that stuff?
It was like pretty high. It's kind of a high pressure, long hours, high stress, frustrating job. And that's how it goes because, you're working for the director, you're working for the music supervisor, and then there's producers and things, and everyone comes in and they'll have, okay, when you do listening sessions, you'll get feedback, okay, this is working, this is not working, and it's hard to figure out like exactly what they think they want sometimes, and it can be frustrating. And often you end up right back where we started, after trying and jumping through hoops and trying all these other things that they suggested. But so in that respect, it's a bit like working for somebody, like a job kind of thing. It's less artistic, in my opinion. But it always feels good when you get the approval and you get there, even though it's like you pulled your hair out and it sucked and you wanted to quit, but you finally get there.
Do you ever feel like it's that way mixing records for A&R guys?
Oh. Yeah, it can be. I don't know. I think with my mixing, I used to run into that more so, but I think now I've advanced in my mixing to the point that like I know how to get there after a couple of...
Get there quicker.
Yeah. And the revisions are usually like really minor kind of things,
I think I cut you off. You were saying something earlier.
Oh, well, just in the realm of like visual media music, I did half of the soundtrack for Metal Gear Rising game for Konami like in 2013, and that was really challenging and frustrating, and with the whole getting the stuff approved. But it was fun. It was because it was metal. It was a hybrid of industrial metal, orchestral, and like EDM songs, and then so there were songs that would play during the boss fights, but they weren't like, so then they had vocals as well, and I had to write all the lyrics and produce it, and I played a lot of most of the guitars, and I had some other guitar players come in. I had Bill Hudson in on some solos, and I had Nita.
Oh, he's really good.
And I had Nita Strauss on a couple tracks as well. And
also really good.
Yeah, she's great. And then that was. I felt like, oh, this is going to be easy. I want metal songs. And then I did the first one, and they were like, yeah, this is great. And they approved it. And then a week later, they're like, no, it's not approved. We don't like it at all. We want to change everything. And I was like, oh my God, what the fuck? So it was a lot of trying to figure out what it is that they think they want when they don't exactly speak music. These are game writers, game producers, publishers, and music supervisors that have some knowledge of music, or at least they're supposed to, but still and there was a language barrier because there was a Japanese client, so it was difficult to get to the finish line on those ones, but we did.
It's interesting that you say this, because one of our very first podcast episodes, I think episode number 2, is called Musical Translator, and it's about how a producer's job at the end of the day is to be a musical translator between the artist and what you hear. So you're supposed to translate what they actually want, not what they say they want, but you're supposed to translate what they actually want into sound. And so it sounds like it's the exact same thing, but I'm just wondering how what am I trying to say? I was just wondering how you went about actually understanding what they wanted, if it was that difficult. Was it just trial and error, or did you have a thought process behind it?
There was a lot of trial and error. So how about this? Okay, how about this? Okay, how about that? Kind of thing. But
So lots of options.
Yeah, they like it when I guess it's helpful to give options, because then one's usually better than the other, and at least they have something to like better than something else. But I don't know. I guess it's different with every job and with every client. You just gotta go with it and feel it.
One thing that struck me a long time ago was working with artists who would design T-shirts for my band, and if I didn't like the design, it was always tough to be start from scratch. But then when we started working with this other artist, after going through a few, who, whenever we would hire him to do a design, he would send us 4 designs. Pick one, we'll go with that, and we'll work on that. So it was very, very rare that out of the 4 options that I would totally hate everything. It would be possible that maybe they weren't great, but I saw potential in one. Sometimes all 4 were great, but it would only happen once or twice that I didn't like any of the options at all. And so I started to notice that this guy's getting a ton of work, and this is how he works, how he does stuff. He gives options. And then mastering guy, Alan Dutchess, who I've worked with a ton. I've worked with a bunch of different mastering guys over the years, and one thing that I always ran into a wall over was getting revisions done, because what if you didn't like their take on it? It used to be so expensive, and it was like, if you want a revision, you have to just pay for a master all over again. He just would send you 2 versions, A and B, always. That's just what he did, and I think that's one of the big reasons that a lot of people just always went to him, because he would work with you on it. And so even if he didn't get it right at the beginning, and lots of times he didn't get it right at the beginning, he always got it right by the end, because he gave you options and he worked with you on it. So it sounds like there's a little bit of that going on with the non-music people in Gameland.
Yeah, definitely it helps. I think the more the better. When I get mastering done, I don't like to get too many versions, because usually there's so little difference between the versions that it's like, I don't even know if I hear it or not, but yeah, I totally agree.
Oh, this would be like, here's one all analog, here's one no analog, or something like that.
Yeah, like obvious.
Yeah,
cool.
It would be very obvious differences. Or here's one that I made as loud as I could get with that distortion. Here's one that is more dynamic.
Yeah, with the game thing, it was like options for various sections was helpful to have, but it got very meticulous, because it was playing during, the these songs were cut into like 4 sections. There would be the intro that plays once, and then a main looping section that would be for like 2 minutes, that would loop as long as it needed to seamlessly during the fight, but it could kick into a B section and then an outro section triggered by the game engine. So that was completely new to me, and it was a little bit challenging to like think in that mindset when I was doing these songs and then making stems. I never made so many stems in my life too, because I wanted them like every revision I had to make full stems, and they had to like dovetail perfectly and be cut exact, just like to fit with the looping and the game engine. And like it was a good learning experience to do that.
I'm sensing a pattern here, that you like to throw yourself in the deep end.
Yeah.
With stuff.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's part of me. It's my DNA, I guess. I just go all the way. It's a curse and a blessing. It's like I've got this overachiever, thing, and then at the same time I have like a self-destructive, like the exact opposite dark side of it that like I guess comes with the territory. So as long as I keep that dark side in check, I can keep moving forward and living.
How do you keep it in check? Asking for a friend.
I guess it's a fundamental thing. Once you know where those paths lead, you gotta just say no to walking through certain doors and know that you want to, stay on track and keep moving forward.
Eye on the prize.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know, the way I've always seen the whole achievement thing and taking risks is that this line of work is so risky and it's so hard to make something of yourself in it that if you don't go balls out, you're probably going to fail.
Yeah.
So it's actually riskier to not go balls out.
It is,
in my opinion. So playing it safe is actually riskier than going the risky route and going balls out.
I totally agree. And you got to be ready for a lot of rejection, and you got to have thick skin, and just because not every project is going to win, but that shouldn't stop you, and it never stopped me. Especially getting into the beginning of my producer career and always fighting for acceptance and to get the gig or to get the placement or to have the song you're writing go on somebody's song, and competing with all these other talented people, and your hopes are up and then you're crushed, but you got to get back up and just keep going and know that every step is a step forward, even if it feels like you just fell down a fucking hole.
Well, I guess how long would you stay crushed for? Is it like a day, a week, a month?
In the beginning, it would stick a little, just stick for a little while, but then I was like, well, fuck this, cause on to the next. Let's go. Pick it up and go.
Yeah, that's kind of how I see it too. It's like, once it does sting, of course, if you're human and not a sociopath, but the thing is that it's over. It's like if you didn't get it, it's over. So, what are you doing if you're dwelling? Like you can't go back in time and change the outcome of that rejection. So
I think I naturally built up like this tolerance or this protective layer where I would think going into something, just already being prepared for this a long shot. This might not happen. This is like against the odds to get this one, but we're going to try anyway and maybe we'll get it. And it's like, it will go from 10% winning to 90% rejection. And little by little, like the ratio of winning was going up to the point where it's like, okay, it's enough to sustain and validate what I'm doing. So
I'm sure you still deal with rejection.
Yeah.
I think it's just a normal fact of working in this field.
Yeah.
Does it still bother you?
Well, yeah, I'm still human, and I'm not a sociopath. So, I mean, because I'm passionate about what I do, and I love what I do, and I want it all to win. But I'm a realist, and been doing this long enough to know that not everything is going to be a number one gold record, or whatever,
You ever worked with a band where you got really into it and like worked your ass off and were like, this is going to be the band, and they kind of break up before the album even comes out and nobody gives a shit? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
As opposed to a band where you're like, who the fuck is going to like this? And then it gets big.
I've had a bit of both of those. I mean, there's one, like, I've done production deals. I really don't do it anymore because it's very time consuming and it's a high risk. But like in the mid 2000s, I was like really driven to discover new talent and help them do production deal, help them write songs, put the band together, and then package it up and shop it and try to get it signed. That was like a big thing I wanted to do. After I had got to the point where I was like a bit of a name as a freelance producer and a mixer, I wanted to go into that creative end of it, talent development. And I did it with a band called Damen. I actually got them signed to Roadrunner through Monty around 2008.
I remember that band.
Great band. And that record came out, and I felt like, oh, that was a big win, like I found this guy and, did the whole record with a partner of mine at the time, and helped them put their band together and, offered guidance that was more on the manager side and got them signed. And that was like, okay, cool, it can be done. And I felt really good about that. And then I did another one, and it was a metal band. Me and the same guy, Lucas Banker, that I used to work with a lot, he's a friend of mine. We put this metal band together, and the whole concept, and co-wrote the music with the singer, and put a band together around him and designed the look and some ancillary content like a comic book, a motion comic book, and all this story. And we got it signed to Virgin. We got a huge deal from Virgin through Rob Stevenson when he was the president there. And then right when we got the offer, we partnered with Rick Sales, who was a manager for Slayer, to partner with us on the whole project, because we were like, okay, this is getting serious now. We need some, serious big baller manager help here, and he's definitely one of the best in the business. So yeah, everything was perfect, and so we got the deal, closed it, did the record. The record was accepted, started the promo process, the beginning stages of marketing, and had a release date on the books. And then Rob Stevenson got fired from Virgin, and the new president came in within a month and was like in an A&R meeting, okay, what's this metal band here? Oh, that's the Killcore. And he's like, okay, who in this room is going to raise their hand and tell me that they're going to break this band? And of course, nobody spoke up. They didn't want to lose their job over it or risk anything. It's like, so the band got dropped before it came out, shelved and dropped. And so that never happened. So there was a big letdown. That was a big letdown for me, but still a win in the fact that we took this one singer and built this whole concept and a band and a record and got its big record deal and partnered with Rick on it, and it had all that. And then it's really typical for a major label president to go from one label to another, and then things change when the new guy comes in, and a lot of bands suffer from those transitions. And it sucks for the bands because
it's totally out of their control.
Yeah, and that's what happens. It's one of the reasons going with the indie label for new bands, even then, but more so now, is a smarter route for a developing band to go from zero to somewhere at least, with a lower risk.
There's another interesting point in what you just said in that whole story about the A&R meeting is, I think that one thing that young bands should do when getting signed to a label is to actually travel to the label and meet the people there and try to get a feeler for if the entire label is behind the band or if it's just like the A&R guys, like pet project. Because if the whole label isn't like team your band, it's going to be tough to get the publicist, the in-house publicist to care, or the product manager to care, or anybody to care when they have a bunch of other bands too. So it's important to know that it's not just your A&R guy who cares. It's important to know that the whole team is going to be behind your band. If they're not, you're going to have a tough time.
Yeah, it's totally true. I mean, the product manager is very important, and the publicist is very important. The digital team is all very important, and relationships are the key. So yeah, if you can't make those connections and bond and build and maintain relationships with all the moving parts that matter, then it's not going to go as well as it could, if at all.
No. Well, it's not because they're bad people or trying to fuck the band over. That's something that a lot of people need to get out of their heads. It's that they have more work than they have hours in the day for, and they're going to focus, number one, on the priorities that the guys on top say should be prioritized. So, like, if you're on Roadrunner, Slipknot's going to be the priority, of course. On any label, they're going to have their quote-unquote Slipknot band where that's the priority no matter what. But, once you start going down the ladder, a lot of it is, well, the person has the choice if they're going to push this or that or that. Yeah. And the more they like you, the more they believe in you and like you, the more likely they're going to help you. And again, it's not because they're bad people or anything. It's just because they're humans with X amount of time to devote and way more bands than ours.
Yeah, you're totally right. It's like, and it goes throughout the business in general. It's like relationships are the music business more than anything else. I mean, yeah, good music, good talent, and good everything. But like, as far as business goes, relationships are all of it.
It's true. And I don't think, though, that you have to be friends with everybody, because you can't possibly be friends with everybody. There are going to be some people that you clash with, and there are some motherfuckers in this business, like some booking agent.
Well, you can't be friends with everybody, but there's definitely people that you cannot be enemies with, or else you're fucked, so.
Yes. Yes, correct. That's absolutely right. I think you should at least try to be on like decent terms with as many people as possible.
Well, as an artist, it's like, for band guys, it's not that hard. It's easy. They like, because I do management as well, and I'm behind the scenes and I'm in a band, and I'm like playing all these roles and trying to juggle it all. But I think band members need to be super nice and need to be liked, more than anything. And they need to assume that anyone, whoever, if it's a radio promoter or a journalist or somebody from a label or a booking agent that they don't even know, like, they should assume that everyone is important, and making a good impression and being well liked is going to benefit their career immensely over time.
Just treat everyone like gold.
Just, be a good person, be super nice, and, while being yourself at the same time, of course, but yeah.
In some way, I was going to say, in some ways it's easier said than done, but at the same time, it just is what it is. Like, you're right, that's how you have to approach it. And I know this from my own experience of not always being that way, that it bit me in the ass when I wasn't that way. And I just know that the more people you get along with, the better, because it's a very, very small world. The music game is very, very small.
Yeah, and the gatekeepers have been there for a long time, and they're going to be there long after you're gone. So it's like, it's important to leave the right footprint, because you need these people, and that's just how it is.
It's interesting. I remember a few years ago, it kind of became a thing for bands to go completely indie, and like Nine Inch Nails did, and Radiohead did, and so all these smaller bands were like, we can do it too, and it's like, no, you can't. I mean, yeah, you can, but no, you can't. Like, you can if you're like the outlier, the total outlier, who happens to be the one band that is genius musically and genius business-wise and comes around at the right place in the right time, and somehow everything just works out. All the lights are green down that road, and they happen to be an indie success. But that is not the norm. That's definitely an exception, a very tiny exception. And for the majority of you guys out there, whether you're a producer or an artist or whatever, you're going to have to deal with the industry. And there's kind of no way around it. So be cool.
But you need that. You need the people that are good at certain jobs, that are like publicists, and you need a booking agent. These things are very important, and these are done by people who do that as their career. That's their life, and that's all they do, and they're fucking good at it. And yeah, you need them. You can't do all those things on your own. I mean, like I said, I guess there is the exception here and there, but
a good publicist is worth their weight in gold, in my opinion. And like our buddy George, he's incredible. I'm always blown away by how easily a really good publicist can make mountains move with like a phone call.
Yeah, George Valley is amazing. I'm really, really lucky to have him working my band right now. I'm not affiliated. I'm on an indie label with Once Human. It's a German label called Ear Music. That's a good label. Like they're doing well financially because they have bands like Deep Purple and they have Dragon Force. They have Baby Metal in Europe, and older bands like Foreigner and Deep Purple. They make a lot of money for the company, so they're in good shape. But in America, it's like I went ahead and I was able to get George to work publicity for my band, and I was even willing to pay for it out of my own pocket. And so I told my label, I'm hiring this guy for our publicity in America, and if you want to pay for it, that'd be great. He's amazing. And they did. They brought him on, and I'm fucking he's moved mountains for us, literally. My singer's on the cover of Revolver coming out in February, and he's gotten us it's like we're getting major label publicity level stuff out of George, and I'm on an indie, and I'm in an extreme death metal band. So that's exactly right. I had a very similar experience when I did a guitar album called Avalanche of Worms with the other guitar player from Doth and Sean Reinert from Cynic. We did it in 2009 or something. Came out in 2010, I don't remember, but it was on a really small label. We weren't on Roadrunner or Century Media, and they had an in-house publicist who was just some 21-year-old kid. And I mean, the dude who ran the label was really cool, but this publicist kid was just he was a good kid, but he was just out of his element, basically. He couldn't, we had just come from Roadrunner and stuff with Amy, and we're looking to get this record out there, and this kid didn't have any contacts. He wanted me to give him my contacts. I was like, this is not happening. And I tried to get the label to hire George. I begged George to save my ass, and he said yes, but the label wouldn't pay for it. I just paid for it out of my own pocket. And dude, within 2 weeks we were in Guitar World, all this stuff. We were getting all the kind of press that you would want on a guitar album, and the record didn't get huge or anything, but it has a very good, people who know it love it, and they only love it because George got it out there for them to be able to hear it. Without him, it would have been, nothing would have happened at all. Yeah. There's no way we would have been in Guitar World with it, for instance. Yeah, it's a specialized skill set that requires really good relationships, and it's a really valuable thing to have, is the right publicist, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about some recording stuff. We've been talking the industry and everything for a little bit. I want to talk about your guitar tones a little bit, because they're just thundering. I've listened to a bunch of your records, the Devil Driver, Gojira, your new stuff, your latest mixes with Once Human. Your guitar tones are just ridiculous. They're huge, aggressive, clear, everything you would want in a metal guitar tone. I'm just wondering if you could
Thanks.
talk about that. No, seriously. I just call it like I hear
Cool.
it. I mean, it's great stuff. I'm wondering if you think that some of that has to do with the fact that you're a good guitar player, or like, I don't know, maybe you could just talk about what some of those ingredients are in your tone pie for guitars.
Good player is an important part of a guitar tone, no matter who's recording it. Like, obviously, that's the beginning. The guitar itself. I like mahogany body and EMG pickups. I seem to get the best, even if it's a Gibson or an ESP, or I'm playing Ibanez now. Always mahogany body and EMG 81s. That's like, for me, that's a must. It's like with Devil Driver, that was what was it, EVA? I think that was the 5150. That was a vintage 5150 head with a 57 and a 421 on it, through a oversized boogie cab, which actually has 75 watt Celestions in it, which for some reason I always sounded better. I still have that cab, but I don't usually mic cabs much anymore. But
You use a Kemper?
yeah, I use a Kemper. I've profiled like some stuff with that cabinet that I'm talking about, 57 421 summed, and so I've got some good EVH and some 5150 tones that I made, and they're all in the Kemper now. And I love the Kemper because it's like consistent and convenient, and it sounds amazing. Like, I was blown away. That piece of gear is the most revolutionary guitar gear in my lifetime because of profiling.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I agree. I said the exact same thing when I got mine in like 2013. I was like, this is a game changer.
Yeah, it's all in it. And when you're profiling and you A/B the live tone to the profile, it's like, wow, okay, I'm sold. So yeah, and then I've got some newer tones that actually, these are morphed from the Once Human tone it started as an old Axe FX preset that was tweaked and went through Portico, Rupert Neve Portico channel strip with some pretty drastic EQing, and then back in through a Lynx IO, and then profiled into the Kemper. It's like whatever it's gone through. And I have a few versions of it that my new guitar player Max Karen helped with making these tones. Yeah, they're like, I'm really happy with this one now. It's what's on the Once Human tone. I'm playing 7-string with a GC FAD tuning, so that's like, it's like a drop C from the top 6, and then the low 7-string is G. Mm-hmm. Which gets you down almost as low as like an 8-string in standard. And with this tone, still has that clarity, and it gives you that super low, heavy feeling. And
yeah, it sounds monstrous.
Yeah, it's clean and clear and bites. It's a weird, like, the tone does not work live at all. It's great for recording, and I don't even have to really EQ it in the mix. But like, if you put it through a PA in a club or a big venue, it's gonna rip your fucking ears off and not sound good at all. And so I'm working on, like,
because of the high end.
Yeah, because of the high end. Yeah, and
interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm actually curious about that. So, because I've seen some other people talk about this, like Misha from Periphery used to talk about his Axe FX presets. He'd use, I don't know if he still does this, I just remember that he said that he used a different one for the studio than live, because live he has to dial in way more mids to be heard and not blow out the PA and everybody's eardrums. So is that basically what you do?
Yeah. You need the low mids and the mid mids, and you need to cut a lot of that top and even be a little bit less gain, and it works, it works for live.
So can you talk a little bit about how you go about getting a tone that is monstrous and also clear?
I mean, it goes back to the whole, I feel it and I hear it. I start turning fucking knobs and moving mics and blending faders until it's right, you know? Like you know when it's right. And
So do you know in advance what you're going for, or is it one of those things where it's like you know when you get there?
yeah, like right now, okay, I really have like a few two tones in my Kemper that I would go to for preamping in a mix, for example. I haven't like tracked a record. The last record I tracked besides Once Human was Butcher Babies, the current one that's out right now, and I used amps. I used a EVH. I think I used EVH and mics on that. Or wait, did I? I can't remember, but I've got like a rock metal tone that's a little bit beefier, and then I have the more metal as fuck tone that's cuts more and it's still really clear, but it's really searing but not painful. And so if I'm doing mixes and I'm going to reamp, depending if what kind of band it is, usually I'm doing either like full-blown metal or, you know, something more along active rock / metal kind of heavy rock kind of stuff. So I kind of just, you know, and in reamping, I usually have to tweak stuff, you know, for the DI. I don't know what it is. I'm using a Radial GD7.
Do you feel like something gets lost?
I've never put a DI through my Radial as on a reamp and felt like I plugged the guitar into the amp. I have to like, I don't know if it's a gain thing or if it's the Radial. Do you use Radial for reamping?
I use the Kunaberry reamp, and I also have a Little Labs Red Eye, which I love.
Little Labs was the first reamp box I ever heard of, and it was like in 1999. And I remember that one sounding really good. But yeah,
it's great. It's got tons of headroom, and it's the one that I use is both a DI and a reamp. Kind of depending what side you plug into. And it just sounds great. And I have noticed that with some of the Radial stuff, sometimes there is a little bit of tone loss. Just a little bit.
I experience like extreme, like it almost sounds like when I run a DI straight through it, and with the intensity is all the way up on the radio, it sounds like the guitar has half volume.
Oh, that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, I don't know, and I don't know if it's the guitar player or the pickup or the way they recorded it or the DI, so I have to like gain it up and even compress it to contain it from peaking and like get more VU out of the DI coming in to make it hotter, and then tweak my settings on the Kemper as well, pretty much pushing everything up a little bit. But it works. In the end, it works. But it's never like, I never feel like I'm plugged in a guitar and it's the same tone at all. So
it's not. I ask this question to lots of dudes who come on here, by the way. I'm still waiting for one guy to be like, it's the same. I don't hear a difference.
Yeah, let me know.
I think everybody pretty much agrees. Yeah, if someone comes on and says that, I'll let you know. I'll also let you know what he's doing, because I'm going to ask him. Because I have never once in my life been able to get a reamp tone to sound like when you plug right in, and I don't know anyone else who has.
Yeah, why is it? I mean, the whole thing is, I don't know the science behind it, but I understand it's like impedance. It has turning the line signal back into a guitar signal. That's what the reamp box is supposed to do. It's supposed to make it. Yeah. Yes. So why is it so difficult? Why can't they get it right? I don't know. I'm gonna try Little Labs again.
I don't know. Well, the Little Labs, especially on the DI side, is really, really good. Mm-hmm. Out of the ones I've used, it has the most headroom and just has the sparkliest sounding DIs. I've used a Countryman and a Radial and the Little Labs. And they're all pretty good. So yeah, I suggest it. So let's do a rapid fire session where I'm going to name something and then tell me what comes to mind. So first thing that comes to mind with it. And it can be a long answer, a short answer, whatever you want to say. So, kick drum.
Chicken soup. Oh, sorry. Wait.
Perfect.
Okay. Kick drum. The first thing to get The first
Yeah.
thing to get muted in a mix. No, not the first thing. I mean,
No, that's a great answer.
okay, rapid fire. Let's go.
Yeah, snare.
It's very important to have an organic snare in the mix, so get it right when you're tracking it.
Rhythm, guitar, heavy.
That's my life right there. My life in a nutshell.
All right. Screaming vocals, female.
I love it. I think it's cool that like female fronted metal is widely accepted for the most part these days, you know. And I think like Angela era Arch Enemy really made that and solidified that, and then opened the doors for it to be accepted. Obviously, I'm in a band with a female, and she's badass and has like a really brutal voice. If you close your eyes, it's like you can't even necessarily know that that's a girl. She's got it, you know, she feels it. It's in her soul. It's what she grew up on. It's who she is. So it's pretty cool that in one way, it's sort of, I know it's a good thing and a bad thing. It categorizes female-fronted bands as that. But because of that, there's less competition to stand out within that because you're in that box. There's not as many bands out there like legitimately doing it with that to compete with and to like be compared to. So I guess there's an advantage to it in that. And yeah.
All in how you work it.
Yeah.
What about overheads?
EU67, KM84.
Oh. Whoa, all right, hold on. U67, tell me about that on overheads. What's your thinking with that, and what do you like about it?
I felt it was warm, and with the right cymbals underneath it, it was like, it's worked for me really well as like a warm, not too harsh, sweet overhead sound.
So do you use it kind of like as an alternative to the KM84s?
Oh yeah, like instead of, depending on what I have to choose from. Yeah, I have done it before. Yeah.
Or do you ever use them both? Like have like two alternate sets of overheads, like one warm, one brighter.
I've had, I have gone like when I can gone there and have like another pair a little bit higher up. But normally it's just, I don't normally do that. It's just whatever the best pair of mics that are in the studio for overheads, that's what I'll use. And usually it's KM84, KM100, or, yeah, those 67s, vintage U67s that work nice. I like it.
Acoustic guitar in a metal mix.
Okay, it's been a while since I've done that. Well, you could put a 57 on it, on the whole. Or you can put an SM7 on it and probably get as good as if you put like a really nice tube mic on it and then just put CLA unplugged on it and it'll sound great.
Awesome. And what about symphonic elements in a metal mix?
I did this record for Septic Flesh. This is do you know the band Septic Flesh? From Greece, yeah.
They're crazy.
They're sick. I really like the band, and their orchestral arrangements are impressive and amazing. They had the 60-piece.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
The Czech Republic Philharmonic 60-piece recorded. So I get to mix sessions all at 96K, about 100 tracks of just orchestra before 22 tracks of drums and multi-track guitars and layers and bass and vocals. So like that was really challenging too, because the orchestral elements are really important for that band. But it's like, how do a big metal mix, and then source tones matter a lot.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Wait, so let's talk about that for a second. How do you approach that? Like, so did you mix down the orchestra first?
Well, this is what I did. I took all the orchestral files and I hired my friend Gerard Marino, who we talked about earlier, and said, give me back perfectly mixed stems of this shit. So give me back 10 tracks out of 100.
Smart.
Yeah, and so he pre-mixed it like a beautiful orchestral before I even, tried to lay it into the metal. with blast beats and 220 BPM crazy, and aggressive screaming vocals and guitars. So that's for that mix it had to be, because I knew like the orchestral elements were so important and had to have their place. I have Gerard do that, and then I could do revisions. Everything was stemmed down to sections, so I could still change things according to what the band wanted me to push up or push down, but I had them organized in nicely mixed stems for all the different sections.
That's a wise move, by the way. I really strongly believe that delegating is a really good thing to do, and especially when you have the opportunity, kind of like what we were talking about earlier with a drum tech. Like, if you know someone who you can hire who's got more expertise than you at something, just do it. It's going to make the project better. Why risk the project when you have access to an expert?
Yeah, I totally agree.
So that made it probably 100 times easier to work with.
Yeah, that made it like, completely workable.
Did you have to do a ton of filtering after the fact, or just leveling?
Mostly leveling, a little bit of filtering depending on what else was happening in the song. But yeah, like the guy who did the arrangements was very talented, and the parts were beautiful, and they were recorded amazing, and it was all organic. And then Gerard being like his top of the game kind of guy for mixing that kind of thing. So yeah.
Nice. Let's talk about Gojira some. So those of you listening who don't know, you should know that Logan is our guest mixer on Nail the Mix this month. He's mixing Toxic Garbage Island by my favorite modern metal band, Gojira, and lots of people's favorite modern metal bands, actually. And from the album The Way of All Flesh, which I remember when that came out, it was like a holy shit moment for production. Because everybody loved their album before that. I still love it. But, it doesn't sound great. I think the quality of the music is the reason people love it, not the mix. This was the first time hearing them with like a real mix, and it was just so powerful. And I know lots of pro guys, who put out records that everybody listening to this listens to, who use your mix on that as their reference still now in 2016. And we're talking about a record that came out in 2008, I believe. It's still being used as a reference for lots of guys, and that's kind of tremendous. And also, so props, congrats, and just wow about that. And also for me, as being one of the dudes behind Nail the Mix, it's a fucking cool, because for me, this is like, we don't always do bands that I personally love, but I personally love this band, so for me it's really, really cool. By the way, those of you listening, if you want to do this, just go to nailthemix.com/Gojira, and you will get the actual raw tracks from this, so you can mix it yourself, enter into a mix competition against your peers. We have prizes for the winners from Kush Audio. The first place will win their Omega preamp 500 series that comes with a plugin that emulates different preamps, and it's incredible. If you know their plugins and hardware, they're top of the line stuff like the Clairphonic EQ, for instance. And you also get a year subscription to their plugins, and then second place is going to get a year subscription to their plugins. And then you also get a live mix with Logan, where you get to watch him mix the song live on video, ask questions, interact, have fun, and learn how historic metal records are made. So now that I'm done plugging the shit out of it, I want to talk about it. So how did that how did that come about for you? And just tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for the compliment about the mixes and stuff. I appreciate that. I actually used that mix as an A/B source as well to this day. So yeah, it's just like, so that record, how did it come about? I mean, it's kind of cool the way things happen. And we can go like, if I could be long-winded here, you can cut it up if you want, whatever. But so
Be as long-winded as you want.
okay, so my first kind of big break in production was a mix I did for Roadrunner United, and it was a song that Dino Casares was the producer for on that, that Roadrunner United thing. And I think Roy Mayorga played drums on it, and they just showed up one day at the studio where I was working, and I was like, what are you guys doing here? It was Dave McLean from Machine Head, Roy Mayorga, and Dino. And I had Studio B, that was my place, and they were working in A at Undercity. And so they showed up, and I was like, what's up? What are you doing? And they told me what they were doing, and I was like, oh, that's cool, awesome. And I was like, wow, my studio's just next door. If you guys need anything, let me know if you need any help. Because I knew like they probably would, because the room had some bugs. It's with a big analog. It's with the SSL, it was a bit glitchy, and so sure enough, they needed some troubleshooting, and I came over and helped them out. And just by proximity, I guess, and just being around, like Dino was like, hey, Logan, you want to do a guitar track on this one song as a guest? And I was like, fuck yeah, cool, give me the files. So he gave me the session, I went over, I did what he wanted me to do. But I also mixed the song just because I had it. I had the session.
Just because.
Because I had the session, and I was like, I wanted to present him what I did, and then I cared, and I mixed it, for like 3 or 4 hours, and it sounded really good, and I was stoked. So they were like, cool, that sounds awesome. And then Monty Connor got it, and he was like, this sounds really good, this mix, what is this? And Colin Richardson was on board to mix Dino's tracks. So it ended up where everyone really liked my mix, and Colin was still mixing. He mixed it, and was like, they ended up choosing mine over Colin's for the record. And that moment,
That's quite a win.
yeah, I felt, that was a really pivotal, good moment for me. And and it was a single, and we did a video and everything. So that was all like just being in the right place at the right time. And then all that happened, and the things that stemmed from that directly are massive. So that put me on Monty's radar as a legitimate like mixer and producer. So within a matter of a month or so, he had Soulfly come in for me to produce one song for them. It was for a compilation, a Metal Hammer compilation, a Marilyn Manson cover song. But I was in Soulfly, but 7 years had gone by. I hadn't really talked to Max. And then there he was in my studio, and I was producing, and that went really well. So Max and Monty wanted me to produce the first Cavalera Conspiracy record, which happened like another month after that. And then Joseph Duplantier was playing bass.
That was a badass record,
cool,
by the
thanks.
way.
It was fun to do, because it was like Igor and Max together for the first time since Sepultura split was just like as a great moment to witness. And like,
Yeah.
like when I set them all up and mic'd everything, and they were in the room all together and just busted out Refuse Resist for the first time in like, I don't know, 15 years or something. Like the whole room just caught on fire. I was like, fuck, this is amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So there I was doing that record, and then Joseph Duplantier from Gojira was the guest bass player on the record, and we hit it off, and he liked working with me. So that's how The Way of All Flesh came into my studio. And the way we did that was they came over, and I recorded the drums, and in that same room there, it was at Undercity in North Hollywood, and edited the drums. And then they took the files back, and Joe tracked the guitars and the vocals and the bass, just like he had always done. He's really the producer for Gojira, kind of always has been. Mm-hmm. But so I came in for drum tracking and editing, and then mixing when they were done with the tracking. And so that's how I got to the Gojira record from.
Can we talk about the drummer for a second? What's his deal? Why is he so damn good?
He's the best metal drummer, probably the best metal drummer that I've ever recorded.
I think he's pretty much the best metal drummer.
He's amazing. He feels it. And I think that the connection with him and his brother is very tight and very close. Like they are like one. So that helps a lot in the general vibe of their music, I think. It's like that feeling amplified, by two.
So like the Pantera thing.
Yeah.
That interesting. Because he's got something that a lot of guys don't, which is not only is he technical as shit, but he hits really fucking hard and he grooves like crazy. Like usually
he hits loud.
You get one or two of those usually with drummers. Usually they hit hard and they groove, but they're not technical. Or they're technical and they groove, but they don't hit hard.
Yeah.
Like you don't normally have all three of them.
Yeah, he's got and finesse like a motherfucker. Like, and also hitting hard and hitting loud to me are two different things. Like you can have a big strong arm and hit things with sticks, but if you don't do it with the right finesse, it's not gonna, it's gonna hit hard with the right kind of hard when you really know what you're doing and you really feel it. And he's got like just tons of feel. That's what's like amazing about him.
Yeah, it's
and his musical mind, the complexity of his rhythmic mind is like pretty fucking out there too. Like one of the songs was like the 18 bar one phrase was 18 bars, and I'm like, I'm like looking at the chart and I'm like, you actually count that? He's just I feel it, but he had to chart it out, and like, yeah, it's cool.
So they chart their shit.
Well, he did on some like that. I forget the title, but it was like, it's the one that has this really cool groove, odd time intro with a lot of the percussive metal sounds happening too, which they do that. I can't remember the song title, but the phrase was 18 bars. So it was like, it was in, I don't know, 78 over 18. I don't know what the meter is, but it was like pretty much pushing it to the limit, but still totally grooved.
I've noticed that lots of those drummers who are like that level, right, they'll chart their shit out. There's this dude, Alex Rudinger, who's like I think he's like the best extreme metal drummer I've ever worked with. Certainly one of the best in the world, and he reads while he records the whole way through. He charts everything out, and it's like a blast beat machine.
Yeah.
It's really impressive stuff. Lots of the guys who are that good tend to write their stuff. I've noticed. So let's talk about the mix some, because the guys that are going to be working on this, I believe, are going to have a challenge in front of them. What to you was the biggest challenge about it?
Well, first of all, I'm really excited to do that. It's going to be fun. I haven't opened that. Obviously, that was done in 2007. I did that mix, and I was working on an old, even at the time, it was an older system, Pro Tools 5.1.3 OS 9 with an average 88,000 and TDM cards, the old TDM cards. And so I don't have that rig anymore. And obviously it is vintage Pro Tools, I guess. But so there was proprietary plugins involved in making that mix that sound the way it does that I don't have now, that they don't even make for newer Pro Tools, that as far as I know. And so I'm going to start from scratch, but the source tones are what they are. They're good. I mean, the guitar tones, these are EVH. They're really, when you listen to them solo, they're really not very gainy, and they don't sound really aggressive by themselves, but in the mix, they sound, because of the way Joe plays, he picks really hard and with a lot of feeling. And there's a lot of good note in there, and there's enough bite to make them sound really aggressive, and it allows for the overheads to not get involved in the top end. And so getting the clarity with the guitars to drums is really not that hard, as I remember, with those source tones. And I mean, I remember I didn't even gate the snare. Like the snare, 57 top snare mic was like right in the center because of the way his drum kit was really tight and really with a lot of shit. I had to get in between the two rack toms, like directly center, facing the drummer basically. It wasn't an ideal place for me to put a snare mic normally, but it worked. The bleed was just wide open on the snare, and there's a lot of organic snare in the mix. I'm not sure, like, how I'm going to approach that when I remix it now. I'm going to do it just like I would now. So that'll be fun and nostalgic in a way. And like, I'm probably going to, A-B it to the album master, yeah. And maybe do some other stuff, but I'm just going to have fun with it and make it sound as good as I can in the period of time that we have. And there's the cymbals of like SM81, the overheads are SM81, but they should sound good. Like they do sound good. And he has the right cymbals in the room that we picked. We went down to, he just had a big selection of cymbals, and I think we borrowed a couple as well. And so the cymbals sound good. The toms in the original mix are 100% organic with no samples on there, and they sound good.
Was there any sample on the snare?
In the mix that I did, there was some use of snare sample, but I mean, I remember, and you can hear it's mostly organic. I would say it was 80% organic. My first mixes my first like pass of one of the songs, we had a lot more sample than they wanted, and they wanted it organic, and they were like, turn the sample down, like even turn it off. So yeah, and I never really loved the organic snare that he wanted to use and the way he wanted to tune it, but it was his thing, and that's what he wanted, so that's what we went with, and it has a lot of character, and so it works. But
how do you feel about it now?
When I listen to that mix now, I feel like in certain songs, like in Toxic Garbage, for example, I think I can make that snare sound better than it does on the album now, just with more experience and more tools, I think, that I have now. But when I hear it, yeah, but when I hear it, it's cool. It works. Like it's, it works with the song and works with the mix. And it sounds like a drummer. You feel that the drummer's hitting it.
What about kick?
Okay, so he recorded with 2 kicks because he likes to play with 2 kicks. And I don't like recording 2 kick drums because usually one sounds not as good as the other one. Even if they're identical and everything is like lined up right, it's like still one of them doesn't sound the same. So, and I didn't really love the kick sound that I had on either of them, and I remember turning them off, and it's all sample, and I've got samples in there. The samples that I used on the record are in the session, but they're isolated left and right foot because there was 2 drums, so that makes it easy to sort of fake the 2 kick thing by altering the level slightly on the double bass parts, just sort of simulate drummer by a little bit less velocity on the left foot, or a slightly different attack tone on the left foot, so you don't just hear a machine. So that's in there, and yeah, that's about it. It's pretty straightforward.
What about bass?
Yeah, this is again, Joe tracked the bass at his place, and I think all he used is a SansAmp pedal, but I'm not sure. I can't remember what he said, and I got to look at it. I'll look tonight when I send that to you. But I think there's just one bass track on there to choose from, but it sounded good. So yeah,
nice.
Yeah,
that's what matters. Yeah. Was there anything challenging in balancing the vocals or anything like that?
Nothing out of the ordinary. Like he's not like a kind of singer that stacks up tons of vocals so I think there's often one vocal and then it's doubled. He does a lot of single vocal stuff and then doubles parts, like choruses.
It's interesting to me, like so it's like he's not using too many doubles, like a lot of it's natural, and it just goes to show that when a band is awesome, you don't need to do as much. You don't need to do like 18 layers of vocals to hide, to make up for the fact that the person sounds like a dying cat.
Yeah.
Or you say you're not even going to comment.
There's so many things I could say right now, but I'm just not going to.
We're probably thinking of the same person, but or a similar type of situation. But Yeah, there's some vocalists who just suck. That the only way to make them sound good is to layer them so many times. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And then, whenever I hear that, the more you layer, the more you lose the feeling and the emotion,
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah, like with Once Human, Lauren, she's single vocal all the way through, except choruses, there'll be doubles, and sometimes like with the tonal screams, I'll do a triple, but she's like single vocal all the way through, and it's like you really feel it. It's intimate, and it's clear and personal, so.
Something to be said for knowing how to perform on your instrument. So anyways, man, thank you so much for coming on. We're kind of reaching that time. We got to cut this off, but it's been awesome talking to you.
You too, man.
And yeah, I had a great time, and I can't wait to watch you mix on January 4th, I believe.
Yeah, looking forward to that. We're going to be at the Hideout probably, you think, or we don't know yet?
I believe so, yeah. I don't know what room, but I believe so.
Cool, it's going to be sick. Looking forward to that.
That's going to be my second time there in like 2 months. It's a nice place.
Amazing.
For what it looks like. Actually, that's an understatement.
It's like amazing.
Not nice place. It looks incredible. Yeah, I'm stoked.
Yeah, it's my go-to. When I have budget to go to track drums, that's my go-to room. And they've got everything that you want there. He's got like a $50,000 stereo Fairchild if you want to roll that in, and he's got like these vintage Neumann M50s that are like $100,000 microphone, like $100,000 for the pair, kind of. Like he's got some toys going on in there that are fun to play with, and then the facility itself is beautiful. It's just perfect.
It looks like it. Like it looks stunning. So I'm stoked about it. Well, thanks, dude.
Yeah, thank you.
The Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast is brought to you by Kush Audio, a premium manufacturer of top quality audio hardware and plugins. The high end just got higher. Visit thehouseofkush.com for more information. To ask us questions, make suggestions, and interact, visit urm.academy/podcast and subscribe today.